Chapter 9 The Dragon. The rain was falling from a grey sky as the Geats gathered around their king.
Men, warriors, Geats. I often risked my life when I was young,
said Beowulf, looking at their anxious faces.
I'm an old man now, but I am your king, and I will risk my life one more time against this dragon. I would prefer to fight it without a weapon, unarmed, with my bare hands, like I fought Grendel in the old days. But the dragon spits fire, and there will be poison in those flames. But I'm going to face the dragon alone. This is my fight, not yours. The revenge will be mine, and the fame will be mine. Wait for me here.
Beowulf immediately ran up to where a stream of boiling water gushed out from a stone arch. He banged his sword, nailing, on the iron shield and roared. Inside the barrow, the dragon heard the hated voice of a man. It rushed out, breathing fire, spitting the flames at Beowulf. He tried to cover his body with the shield, but the flames went over it, under it, around it, burning him and forcing him backwards. As the dragon advanced, Beowulf struck it again and again with nailing, but the sword was unable to penetrate the thick scales. The Geats watched from further down the hill. The dragon was a terrifying sight, like a storm of fury and fire. Beowulf looked like a human torch, a moving figure enveloped in flames, the blade of the sword flashing as it struck repeatedly at the dragon.
He said he was going to fight the dragon alone,
said one of the Geats. Yes, he said that it was his fight, not ours, added another.
He wanted all the revenge and all the fame for himself,
another one said.
Why should we stay here?
They all looked anxiously at each other. I'm not going to stay here and be burnt to a cinder. How would that help anybody?
Me neither. I'm going to go to those woods down there. Stop! Shouted
Wiglaf, his face white with fury.
I can't believe this. Do you call yourselves men? Don't you remember how you swore that you'd always fight by Beowulf's side? Do you remember all the rings and gifts Beowulf gave you when you drank mead in his mead hall? The armour and swords that you're wearing now, he gave them to you. Use them! It's your duty!
But the Geats avoided his eyes and said nothing, and first walked, then ran down the hill towards the woods.
Cowards!
Wiglaf shouted after them.
I would rather burn to death 1,000 times than desert my king.
He ran up the hill to where the solitary hero was fighting for his life.
Beowulf, I'm coming,
he shouted. The dragon heard the hated voice of a man for the second time that day, and saw a figure with a shield and raised sword running at him. A burst of flame shot from its mouth. Wiglaf's shield was burnt to a cinder, and his sword arm was horribly wounded. Wiglaf ducked behind Beowulf's shield. The two men looked at each other and nodded. No words were needed, and shouting at the top of their voices, they charged the dragon. Beowulf aimed nailing at the dragon's head and thrust as hard as he could. The blade penetrated the scales. The dragon roared in pain, but then the sword bent and broke. Furious, the dragon opened its mouth wide and bit deeply into Beowulf's neck.
No!
Screamed Wiglaf, and despite the agony in his sword arm, he thrust his sword deep into the dragon's side. The flames grew weaker. With the blood streaming down his neck, Beowulf threw the useless hilt of nailing to the ground and reached for the knife in his belt. He thrust it deep into the soft part of the dragon's neck, pushing and pushing until the dragon's eyes closed and the flames stopped completely. Beowulf let himself drop to the ground near the dragon's body. The top part of his body felt very wet, and from a long way away, it seemed to him he could hear Wiglaf's voice shouting his name over and over again.